Hi, welcome to the Game Plan. I'm Rico. Today I'm going to be talking about the games that we have marked for Purge in 2019. So these are games that we've decided are going to be leaving our collection. And then during the course of 2020, I try and sell them or trade them or somehow get them out of the collection. So by the end of this year, all these games will be gone. Usually what I end up doing is trying to do like virtual flea markets when we go to cons or local trades. I used to just put them up on the VGG market and let people buy them and then ship them. And said too much hassle. The shipping costs these days are just ridiculous, and so I don't feel like the person's getting a good, good enough of a value for how much I think the game is worth to me versus how much game they'll get plus the shipping cost. Yeah, it's just a nightmare. So I do local trades and virtual flea market type of handoffs, and then usually I can sell maybe 30 to 40% of our games that way for the course of a year, and then the rest of them I usually just donate to a local community center or something like that. So we'll see where these ones go. I expect similar, probably. I might be able to get 30% of these games, 40% of these games sold somehow, but I've broken them into categories, and I'll kind of explain briefly what each one of them are and why they fit in those categories. But to start, we're going to go with dungeon crawlers. These are games that are outside of our wheelhouse. We had friends that we played dungeon crawlers with a few years ago, and it was fun to play with them. We like the friends, but the actual games are And it's Gloomhaven is the first one, and we played the tutorial. I can understand the virtue of it, and I would recommend it to people who like dungeon crawlers. I can see how it would be fun, and I might even enjoy it under certain circumstances. I could see myself wanting to play like solo campaign, given enough time, or if I had enough free time. But it's just my life's not going to permit that in the foreseeable future at all. So it's just not going to get played. And by the time my life might prevent that, there'll probably be other options that are a little bit more refined. So it's just time to move on. And I know there's a lot of people who could really enjoy this. So it's just sitting on my box. It's sitting on my shelf in a box, and nobody's getting any fun out of it. And that's lame. So I'm going to get that one shifted around. Again, the tutorial is the only thing that was played, so it's brand new. And then the next one is Dark Souls, the board game. And Dark Souls was a game that I backed on Kickstarter. It was early in our gaming, and I hadn't quite refined my taste. This is out of my wheelhouse, but we at the time were playing with those friends, those dungeon crawlers, and this is definitely my favorite dungeon crawler. And so if anyone were to ask my recommendation for a dungeon crawler, it would be this. Having said that, I haven't played a lot of dungeon crawlers, but I have played I've played enough of games and know enough about enough to know from looking at the dungeon crawlers what type fit into my wheelhouse enough that I'd play them and what don't. And there's none of them that stand out to me as particularly excellent games, and this one stands out to me as, of that non-excellent set, it's the best one. So yeah, Dark Souls, the board game. It's a little bit long. It's long to set up and it's long to play. And that's the major reasons. But the actual gameplay is quite fun, in my opinion. The next category of games are swag, and these are easy to understand. They come up pretty much every year. You get some set of games from a con or from somewhere that you didn't pick out. They were just somehow given to you, and chances are they're just not going to land. I mean, what are the odds, right? So the first one is Bargain Hunter. This one we didn't even open. I read about it, and even for the sake of getting my 100 by 1 diversity challenge, I'm just not interested to play this one. So it's just going immediately to the selling block. So it's new in shrink. I guess that's nice. I don't think I'll get $1 for this one. The next one is Nightmare Forest Alien Invasion. Cooperative game. Nope, pass. It was as chaotic and lame as all the others of this ilk. So this is the, what do they call it? Maximum Apocalypse, I think, is another game I played of this type, where you are laying down tile, or you've put down a bunch of tiles and you're revealing the tiles and then resolving what's on them, and you're trying to like explore them, get certain items, and get yourself back. So think, what's it called? The desert and the island one. Oh, and then there's the sky one. Forgotten? You guys can leave it in the comment. It's just a brain fart. I've played the two. I haven't played the sky one yet, but it's the Forbidden. There we go. Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, Forbidden Sky. It's that where you've laid out a grid of things and you're uncovering them and resolving them, and it's just like that. And I don't like those games. Yeah. And then the last one is Pairs. Pairs is a game that we had kept for many years. We got in a swag bag and we kept it for many years thinking, this fits into the collection in a very unique way. We don't have games that we can just sit down and play with anyone if we need to, and this is a game simple enough that you can just play with anyone, and you could put it in your pocket and take it anywhere, but we just never run into that scenario, ever, so yeah, we're just getting rid of it. We played it, I think the only times we played it was one to learn it to see if we want to keep it. We made that decision about, well, it's simple enough we can teach it to anybody, let's keep it. And then we played it again many years later, like, why did we keep this? And then we played it again and thought, oh, okay, we probably kept it because it's simple enough, and then realized that scenario never comes up, so we're getting rid of it. The next group of games are games that we have played at least a couple times on some of them, and they're leaving the collection because they just don't fit there anymore, or they don't fit. Let's just say they don't fit. So the first one is Tiny Epic Western. Tiny Epic Western is actually, I think, a pretty decent little game. It maybe plays a little bit long for what it is. It's a little fiddly. But I think it looks beautiful, and I actually like the gameplay itself. It's fun. For all intents and purposes, I think it's a fine game. I just don't ask to play. Like, it's not something that I itch to play, and so I have the Tiny Epic Kingdoms, which I think is a fine game, and they really don't play anything alike, but they do kind of fit that same little category of a small box game that does sprawl a little bit for what they are, unfortunately, but. I think that kind of does it for me. I enjoy it enough that I don't need Western, and so it's been several years since we played it last, so we decided preemptively it's time to go. The next one is Tiffin. Tiffin is a unique theme I actually really like, but the implementation of the area control majority stuff and the way that works, I think, has been done better by other games in even in our collection, and so it just doesn't. It will never get asked to be played, because if we ever itch to play that type of game, we're going to want to play these other ones instead. So I think it's a fine game, and again, I really like the theme. I think it's a really cool theme, but it just won't get played. The next one, Versailles, is a game that we'd picked up at a flea market, and it took us so long to play. By the time we actually got to it, it was one of those, oh, it's been so long, it better be good, and it can't be that good. So I don't want to play it. It just turned into that over and over and over for like a year and a half, and then finally was forced to play it from a challenge, my Play It Again challenge in 2019. And when we played it, we're like, this is a decent little game. It's a midweight Euro. It kind of fits a niche in our collection that we don't really have a whole lot covered. So we decided to keep it. Then as the year went on, we were like, wait a minute, but we're never going to ask to play that type of game. So why are we keeping it? Oh, in case someone else comes over and wants to play a game in that niche. Well, if someone ever does that, I'll probably just shift them a little to the left or to the right and get them into a game that we think is better and more satisfying, and something else that we have in our collection that we think is a little bit better than that. And it maybe not exactly the niche that it fits, but close enough. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get rid of it. I think again it could find people who like light Euros would probably enjoy this one, and I know that's pretty common for people who maybe have different gaming tastes. They like the Ameritrash games or party games, but they do like some puzzly games that if they're light enough and the Euro-y elements. And I think this might be the type of game that would fit well into a person's collection who's more like that type of gamer. So we'll see. And the next game is Libertalia. Libertalia I've played a handful of times actually, and it's a fine game. It's not a game that it just doesn't fit in my wheelhouse. That's really the simplest way to say it. This game does not have any of those little puzzly things. It doesn't have the types of tactics and strategies that I look for when I'm playing a game. This is another type of game altogether that usually don't land well for me. And this game is fine, and I'll play it, and it's fun even. The fun part for me are the people I'm playing with, not the game itself. But it does induce that type of a group setting. Like, it does induce a fun group setting, let's say it that way. The game itself I don't think is fun, but what it does for the group I think is fun. So I would be happy to play it with other people, and I think this would find a good home, and I think somebody who finds this game will really enjoy it if they're that type of gamer, because I think it's one of the better ones of those types, just not for me. So it's going. We're gonna be passing this one along. And then finally in this group, Eminent Domain. Eminent Domain is a game we played at a con. We were taught. It was fun. I remember enjoying it a great deal. We pretty much bought it when we got home from the con, and we got an expansion when we bought it. And we put it together, we played it, and it actually took us a little bit to play. You know, it sat, you know, sometimes for a few months. Everybody can relate to that, and I think that did that for us. And we ended up playing it, and we're like, wait a minute, this isn't what we remember exactly. I mean, we know we didn't play it wrong and everything. It just didn't play out as fun as we remembered it playing, and we saw, maybe it just saw some of the faults with it that we didn't see the first time around. I think it's a decent little game, and if you like deck builders, I think this is a fine one to play. That follow the leader aspect, kind of like a Puerto Rico, I thought was implemented well here. It just didn't quite land for me, I guess, as far as deck builders go. There's just so many others out there that I prefer. Although none of them quite mix the mechanics the way Eminent Domain does, which is it's unfortunate. I think that this is not getting the desire for play that it should. Let's say it that way. I feel like I should want to play it more than I do, because it fits a lot of the little niches that I really do like in a lot of different games, and none of the other games I have or played really do it the same way that this one does. So you'd think it would fit like a cross-category niche that would just be, by definition, perfect. And for some reason, I just don't ever want to play it. I can't really explain that one. A little unfortunate, because I do think it's a decent little game, but it's just not for me. All right, the next category I'm just going to breeze through because it's really just cooperative games. These are cooperative games that we've owned and have played over the years, and under certain circumstances and with certain people, they're quite fun, but we're either not in those circumstances or those people aren't available to play with us anymore. And we just we're done with them because we don't really like cooperatives anyway, so there's really no reason to hang on to these anymore. The first one is the Red Dragon Inn Battle for Greyport. The next one, Sentinels of the Multiverse, and then finally Aeon's End with the, I think it's called the War Eternal, or Eternal War, I think the War Eternal is called, that expansion. They're all the same type of what I'd call ilk. They are, something is attacking a location, so a town or building or a ship or something that you're trying to defend, and then they're also attacking you, so you have to keep your character alive. And that ilk of cooperative games is saturated, in my opinion. I dislike them in general, cooperative games in general, but that particular ilk I very much dislike. The reason that the ones I've had, I kept them for so long, were mostly due to nostalgia, I guess. The people I played with and enjoying them, and they did have introduced enough elements that gave me enough strategy to keep me engaged in that ilk of game well enough that I didn't hate it. So let me give you the example of Aeon's End. Far and away the best of that ilk of any game I've ever heard of. And I actually, for the most part, like Aeon's End because it's essentially Dominion that's been adjusted to fit into that ilk. And I love Dominion, and I love the way this game plays like Dominion. But if I'm going to want to play a game like that, I'm going to play Dominion. So it just doesn't, there's nowhere for it in my collection. Friday is another game that has kind of just, you know, I played solo maybe the first year and a half, maybe 2 or 3 games. It turned out I'm not a solo player. I get my enjoyment and my fulfillment in gaming from the players that I'm playing with, more so than the game. Even on my favorite games, I still, it's the social aspect, right? And so solo gaming is just not for me. And it's been sitting on my shelf, and it's a decent little game, and I can understand why people like it. So I think I should let other people enjoy it. And then finally, Welcome to the Dungeon and Welcome Back to the Dungeon. These are games that I would recommend as light fillers. We're just done with them. We played them enough that we're ready to move on. They're cute. They're fine. They're not going to be blowing anyone's hair back, but nobody's going to be offended by them either. They're just fun little push your luck games. If you like push your luck, then I don't see any reason why you wouldn't enjoy these. And they're great components, great art. For all those reasons, I think this would be a great gift or a great buy for anybody to have. So I'm hoping I can offload those as well. And then this next one I think could have maybe fit into the. This is a unique one. It may be fit into another category that I've mentioned earlier here, but I think it's a little unique, and it's Heir to the Pharaoh. This is a 2-player only game, and I actually quite enjoyed it, and Lindsey actually quite enjoyed it. We didn't play it again for many years after our first play, and then we picked it up and we had to basically relearn it at that point, and we both really enjoyed it again. So why are we getting rid of it? Well, we remembered after the second play why it took us so long to get back to it after our first play, and that's because this is a type of game where you're going to anticipate and read what your partner's going to do, and that's going to hugely impact how good your turn is going to come out. It's going to, your turn's going to end up. So if you can anticipate what your partner's going to do very, very well, then you're going to do very, very well. And if you can't do that anticipation, you're going to get destroyed. And I can read Lindsey like a book, and she cannot read me. I'm a better liar than her, I guess. And not even a liar. You don't have to lie. You have a hand of cards, and you have to anticipate with what the other player has, and you know what the other player has because you're actually passing cards back and forth. You have to anticipate what they're going to do, and I'm just better at doing that than she is. And so I am going to destroy her in that game all the time. So it's just never going to be fun, and since it's a two-player only game, the vast majority of the time my two-player partner is going to be her. It's just never going to get pulled out, and it's a shame. So we ended up actually donating this one to already to the community center. It's a fun game though, and it's such a shame, and it's a beautiful game too. Like the components and stuff are really pretty, so it's unfortunate. And then this last group of games is actually games that we are getting rid of in our collection and putting into others, kind of. So I'll mention Lords of Waterdeep. We're actually getting rid of it and the Skullports expansion. My sister owns it, and the only people that we would generally play that game with, or that type of game with, are her and my family, and they all live together away from us. And so as long as she has it, we're fine. We don't need it ourselves, because we just never... we've just moved on, right? We've moved past it. Great game, love it, would recommend it to anybody. We've just moved past it. And then these other games are similar to that in that they've been transferred over to my family. Whereas Lords of Waterdeep we're getting rid of because my sister has. These other ones we're just putting it into their collection because they're still fine games, and they're still games that we would enjoy playing, but we would only really ever play with them. And that's Paris Connection, a very light train building game. I think to me, and I know some viewers disagree, is a Ticket to Ride killer, but that's my opinion. Mission Red Planet, which is a little role selection game about sending astronauts off to Mars and the moon, the corresponding moon there. And it's a fun little game, just little light for us. We don't really, and it doesn't play well with two at all, so we're never going to pull it out. Lost Temple, little race game, really simple, basic simple, and really the only reason we're doing this is because when we were learning to paint minis, we bought a bunch of just random minis at a store just to practice. They weren't really tied to any game, I don't even think. They were just random things, but these particular minis that we learned to paint on were characters of the ilk that would be in this type of race game. You're going through the jungle with machetes and stuff, and so like there's a medic one, and there's like a cargo one, and like they all just kind of look like. I mean, I might, if I have some pictures, I think I have some pictures. I'll throw them up here. But those, we painted them. They're fun, and the family enjoys the game well enough, so we're just gonna toss it over there, and it'll get played with them. And then the last one is New York 1901. 1901 it's a fine little game, and it's kind of that Ticket to Ride, like you're just building little sets in your hand, and then you're playing them out in order to take an action. But there's spatial element of how you build the polyomino skyscrapers on your board, and then the bonuses based off of streets and stuff just add another little layer of thinking that I think works well, but it's still quite light, and it's of the spatial games we have, it just doesn't add enough and doesn't have enough that we're going to want to play it as our first choice or even our fifth choice. Really, it's really light, but it works really, really well with my father and other people in the family because it is quite simple, and it's really pretty and cute. So those are getting transferred, but they are technically leaving our collection. So that's it, man. By the end of 2020, every game on there gone. Are there any games that you guys have marked for Purge from the previous year? How do you do your purges? Do you just get a wild hair one day and say, all right, I'm getting rid of all these things, or do you have a systematic way to do it? I think ours is kind of a combination of a lot of things that just add up over time. over the course of a year, and then we kind of just pull a trigger at the end of the year and say, all right, in 2020 we're getting rid of all the games that we marked for Purge from 2019. So yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.